A mother of four, she was at the age of 12 by her stepfather.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want?
Justice!
A grieving mother hunted down her daughter's killers one by one, forcing authorities to act only after she delivered her own justice. From Lupe Mercado's fight against fear to Francis Newton's tragic sacrifice, here are 10 mothers who took revenge on child predators. 1. Marianne Bachmeier. It was a cold, gray day in 1980 in the quiet town of Lübeck, West Germany. Marianne Bachmeier's world was shattered. Her 7-year-old daughter, Anna, didn't come home. Hours turned into dread-filled moments as the search for Anna began. The terrible truth came out. Anna had been lured into the home of Klaus Grabowski, a man with a dark past and a history of hurting children. What followed was every parent's worst nightmare. Anna was slain in a cruel, planned act of brutality. Marianne's grief was overwhelming. Her heart was broken and her anger burned deep. In 1981, Klaus Grabowski went to trial. Marianne hoped for justice, but the courtroom turned into a place of pain for her. The defense tried to make Grabowski seem like a victim, talking about his troubled past instead of his terrible crime. Every detail of Anna's death was discussed in court, and each word tore at Marianne's soul. She was forced to relive her daughter's final moments over and over again. On the third day of the trial, everything changed. Marianne was filled with grief and a strong sense of injustice. She smuggled a small gun into the courtroom. When the moment came, she couldn't hold back her emotions. She fired 7 shots. 6 of them hit Grabowski, ending him instantly. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Marianne stood still, tears streaming down her face, the gun falling to the floor. In that moment, everyone saw how deep a mother's love could go and how powerful grief could be. The shooting shocked Germany and the world. Marianne was arrested immediately, and her actions sparked big debates. Some people saw her as a hero, a mother who took justice into her own hands when the system failed. Others said she was wrong, warning that personal revenge could lead to dangerous consequences. Marianne's own trial was as emotional as the shooting itself. The prosecutors argued that her actions were planned, pointing out how she brought a gun to court. The defense described her as a grieving mother who acted out of deep emotional pain. In the end, she was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 6 years in prison, though she only served 3. The sentence was seen as a balance between understanding her pain and upholding the law. Her actions revealed flaws in the justice system and showed how much pain loss can bring. People still ask, how far can grief and love push someone? What happens when justice feels out of reach? Marianne's story is a powerful reminder of how deep emotions can shape decisions and change lives forever. 2. Miriam Rodriguez. In 2012, in the dangerous town of San Fernando, Mexico, Miriam Rodriguez faced every parent's worst fear. Her 20-year-old daughter, Karen, was kidnapped by a cartel. Miriam was scared but did everything the kidnappers asked. She even paid a ransom, but they lied. Karen was killed, even after they promised to bring her back. The police and justice system failed to help. Most people would have given up, but Miriam didn't. Instead, she turned her sadness into action. Without any police training, she began her own investigation. Miriam dressed up as different people to stay safe and went into dangerous areas looking for clues. She used social media to track the cartel and find out who was involved. Slowly, she uncovered the people behind Karen's kidnapping and murder. One by one, Miriam found them. She handed them over to the police and forced them to act. Her courage was incredible, but it made her a target. The cartel saw her as a problem and wanted revenge. Miriam knew the risks but refused to stop. Her bravery gave hope to other families who had also lost loved ones. Miriam's fight for justice made her a hero, but it also put her life in danger. On Mother's Day in 2017, cartel gunmen found her outside her home and killed her. Her death shocked the country and showed how dangerous it was to stand up to powerful criminals. Even after her death, Miriam's story continued to inspire people. She showed that one person could make a difference, even in the face of danger. Miriam honored her daughter's memory by exposing the failures of the justice system and showing the cost of ignoring crime. She became a symbol of bravery and love. Her story raises tough questions. How far should someone go for justice? And what happens when the system meant to protect people doesn't work? Miriam proved that love can inspire incredible bravery. Her story reminds us of the power of determination, even when the odds seem impossible. 3. Valérie Bacot. Born in France, Valérie Bacot's life was a story of pain, control, and silence. She grew up surrounded by neglect. Her nightmare began as a teenager when Daniel Paulette, her stepfather, used his authority to groom and mistreat her. At first, it was quiet manipulation. Then it turned into constant mistreatment, leaving her feeling trapped and powerless. For years, Valérie endured torment no one should face. Daniel was sent to prison briefly for inappropriately assaulting her, but shockingly, he returned home afterward. Then the unthinkable happened. Valérie was forced to marry him. This marriage was built on fear and coercion. Daniel controlled every part of her life. He decided where she could go, what she could do, and even how she could breathe. Her life felt like a prison. The mistreatment didn't stop with her. It spread to their children, filling the house with fear. Daniel's cruelty had no limits. He monitored Valérie constantly, made sure she had no financial freedom, and threatened to destroy anyone who tried to help her. Despite the fear, Valérie's love for her children grew stronger. She saw their pain and knew she had to act. Her desire to protect them gave her strength to fight back. In 2016, Valérie reached her breaking point. Daniel's cruelty got worse and she couldn't take it anymore. One night, in a moment of terror and desperation, she shot him. With that single act, she ended years of mistreatment. But her nightmare didn't end there. Instead, it changed into a new battle, one fought in the public eye. Valérie's trial sparked debates about domestic cruelty, self-defense, and how society fails to protect victims. Her lawyers argued that she acted to save herself and her children. They said it was a desperate act of survival. The prosecution, however, questioned whether her actions could be justified. In court, the failures of the system became clear. People saw how warnings were ignored, interventions were missing, and silence allowed the mistreatment to continue. As the trial went on, public support for Valérie grew. Many people saw her as a symbol of strength and resilience. Advocates called for changes to how mistreatment is handled by the law. Valérie's story showed how badly protective systems need improvement. It highlighted the stigma survivors face and the importance of listening to their voices. Her courage inspired others to speak out and demand justice. Valérie Bacot's story is a powerful reminder of what happens when victims are ignored. It asks hard questions. How many others are trapped in silence, their cries unheard? What must change to protect those who cannot protect themselves? Her fight is not just her own, it is a call for the world to do better. She stands as proof that even in the darkest moments, courage can spark change. 4. Frances Newton. The world of Frances Newton changed forever in an instant. A mother of 3 living in Texas, she faced a nightmare beyond imagination. Her children, the center of her life, were taken from her in a horrific act of brutality. The loss was devastating, leaving a void nothing could fill. But this tragedy was not just a personal one. It exposed a justice system that seemed blind to her suffering. Days turned into weeks, and her sorrow grew into something stronger, an unshakable need for justice. Yet, the justice she sought would not come from the courts. The investigation into her children's deaths left Frances feeling empty and furious. She believed she knew who was responsible, a man she saw as a threat to her family, but the authorities didn't act. Clues were ignored, evidence was mishandled, and the case stalled. Frances watched helplessly as the system's indifference compounded her grief. One thought began to dominate her mind. If the law would not bring justice, could she? Her sorrow became her strength. Methodically and with unyielding focus, Frances began to track the man she believed was responsible. She gathered information, followed leads, and planned her actions with precision. Finally, the day came when she confronted him. Their meeting ended in a fierce clash, and the man she held responsible was Frances's act of vengeance, a mother's desperate answer to injustice, sparked a wave of both admiration and condemnation. News of her actions spread quickly, dividing public opinion. To some, Frances was a symbol of courage, a mother who took matters into her own hands when the system failed her. People who understood the deep, fierce love of a parent saw her as someone pushed beyond the breaking point. Others, however, criticized her actions. They argued that taking the law into her own hands set a dangerous precedent, undermining the very foundations of justice. When Frances went to trial, the courtroom became the center of a national debate. The defense described her as a grieving mother, driven to her actions by an unbearable loss. Her pain was evident, and her need for justice was undeniable. But the prosecution painted a different picture. They described her actions as cold and calculated, a deliberate crime that demanded accountability. The trial forced everyone to confront hard questions. Could grief, ever excuse such an extreme act? Was Frances's vengeance justice, or was it a step too far? And most importantly, why had the system failed her so completely? Her story became a mirror, reflecting the flaws of a broken system. Frances's actions were a wake-up call, highlighting the cracks in the justice system that leave victims abandoned and vulnerable. The life of Frances Newton is a powerful reminder of what happens when justice falters. It asks us to consider how far we would go to protect those we love, and whether the price of vengeance is ever worth paying. 5. Mehran Bakir. Life changed forever for Mehran Bakir when her daughter, Anna, was taken from her. Anna was taken by Klaus Grabowski, a man with a history of terrible crimes. Grabowski's past was full of brutality, yet he was free to harm again. This showed how the systems meant to protect children had failed. Mehran's world fell apart as she faced the unimaginable loss of her child. The news of Anna's death spread quickly, shocking everyone. Mehran's heartbreak soon turned into a need for justice. She entered a world of courtrooms and legal terms she didn't understand, forced to listen to the horrible details of what happened to Anna. Every word in the trial was painful, making her grief even heavier. But Mehran didn't only feel sadness. She was also angry at the system that allowed a man like Grabowski to roam free. How could someone with such a dark past not be stopped? As the trial went on, her pain grew unbearable. One day, driven by her emotions, Mehran smuggled a gun into the courtroom. In a moment of fury and despair, she shot Grabowski. The act shocked everyone. People around the world debated her actions. Some saw her as a grieving mother who was pushed to her limit, someone who acted out of love and desperation. Others believed she had crossed a line and that her actions were wrong, no matter the reason. The courtroom became a symbol of the conflict between emotion and law. Was Mehran's act a cry for justice, or was it chaos that could not be justified? After her arrest, Mehran's trial stirred even more controversy. Her lawyers argued that she was a heartbroken mother who had been failed by the justice system. They said her trauma had driven her to act. The prosecutors, however, called her actions planned and reckless. They said what she did was dangerous and broke the rule of law. Mehran's actions made a huge impact on society. Advocacy groups used her story to show how broken the system was and how it failed to protect children like Anna. Others worried that her actions might encourage people to take the law into their own hands. They asked, can personal pain ever justify such a choice? And what happens when justice feels out of reach? Even after she served her time, Mehran's story stayed with people. It became a symbol of how systems can fail and how far a mother's love can go. Mehran's name is remembered, tied to both tragedy and questions about justice. Her actions leave us with difficult thoughts. When the justice system fails, what options are left? And how far would any of us go to protect someone we love? 6. Sarah Sands. In a quiet neighborhood, Sarah Sands lived peacefully until a dark secret shattered her world. She was a loving mother whose life changed forever when she discovered that her neighbor, Michael Pleasted, had harmed her children. Pleasted had hidden his criminal past and seemed like a normal part of the community. Sarah was overwhelmed with guilt and fear, her trust in others destroyed. Soon, her sorrow turned into determination. Sarah couldn't understand how someone with such a terrible history was allowed to live freely among innocent people. The legal system seemed too slow and weak to protect her family. She felt an urgent need to keep her children safe. In her anger and desperation, Sarah confronted Pleasted and stabbed him, ending his life. The act was quick and final. Her arrest shocked the nation and sparked heated debates about right and wrong. In court, her lawyers argued that Sarah was a mother pushed to her limits, acting out of love and trauma to protect her children. They said her actions, though extreme, came from her deep fear and desire to stop Pleasted from harming anyone else. The prosecutors disagreed. They said she had taken the law into her own hands and acted as a vigilante. They argued that Pleasted should have faced justice through the legal system, not through her actions. They warned that allowing such behavior could lead to chaos. People had mixed feelings about Sarah's case. Some saw her as a hero, a mother who did what the system couldn't. Others saw her as a warning of what happens when people break the law for personal revenge. Groups used her story to push for changes in how the law protects children and supports families dealing with trauma. Sarah was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to prison. Her case didn't end the debates. Instead, it highlighted the failures of the system and raised tough questions. Is vengeance ever okay? What happens when the system fails to deliver justice? After serving part of her sentence, Sarah was released. Her story continues to make people think about the challenges of justice, love, and morality. It leaves a haunting question. How far would a mother go to protect her children when the system falls short? 7. Sabrina Zunick.
911, what's your emergency? You need to get off the radio, Julia. What's going on? Who had the knife?
My sister, and I just woke up because I was young.
2518 Chagrin Drive, I need units ahead. 2518 Chagrin Drive, I have a female yelling on the phone. Someone else has a knife. Okay, this is your sister?
Yeah, and she's doing my mom with a knife.
She's doing what to your mom with the knife? You need to take a deep breath for me so I can understand you.
No, I did. I'm going to tell you. My mom did it. Please.
2518 Chagrin, I'm going to try and look up a history. What, does your sister still have the knife?
Yeah.
And what is going on there?
I don't know. I just woke up.
Okay, who am I talking to now?
Her daughter.
Okay, and what's going on there? Who has the knife?
My sister.
Okay, does she still have
Hey,
it?
Mom? You okay? What happened?
What's going on? Hold on. You're going to have to take a deep breath. I cannot understand you. Why is your mom going to die? What happened?
I don't know.
Is someone hurt?
She's still stabbing my mom.
She stabbed your mom?
Yeah.
Please, 2518 Chagrin Drive, I have a female with stab wounds. Attention, no ambulance is needed. 2518 Chagrin Drive for a female with stab wounds. Louisville Hills Fire, clear at 118. Is she breathing at all? Yeah, she can hear her. Where's your sister at? Sounds like she's still in the house. All I got was your sister has a knife. Where is your sister? Where is your sister? Well, I got everyone looking for you, honey. Where is your sister?
Born in Ohio, Sabrina Zunick's story shows how systems meant to protect can fail, leaving people to make unimaginable choices. Sabrina's life started in chaos. Her biological home was unsafe, so she entered foster care. Instead of finding safety, she faced her darkest years. Placed with Kevin and Lisa Knofel, Sabrina should have found a safe home. Instead, Kevin, the man responsible for her care, took advantage of her. He used his position as her guardian to mistreat her inappropriately and emotionally. Trapped and scared, Sabrina lived in fear, her voice silenced by manipulation and control. The systems meant to protect her failed again and again. Social workers, teachers, and neighbors missed the warning signs. When Sabrina's distress showed, it was dismissed as normal teenage behavior. Her silence should have been a loud warning, but no one listened. How many other children suffer unseen like this? In 2012, after years of mistreatment, Sabrina felt she had no way out. Desperate, she decided to end Kevin Knofel's life. This act of anguish brought her into the criminal justice system. Her trial started debates about the failures of foster care and the lasting scars of mistreatment. People asked, what drives someone to such a tragic choice? The courtroom was filled with different stories. Sabrina's defense argued she was broken by years of trauma. Experts explained how mistreatment causes post-traumatic stress and clouds judgment. They said Sabrina felt she had no escape. The prosecution said her actions were planned and pointed out other ways she could have sought help. But were those options realistic for someone so deeply hurt? The media turned Sabrina's case into a spotlight on foster care's flaws. Advocates called for change, better training for caseworkers, stricter rules, and safer ways for kids to report mistreatment. Still, many children's suffering stays hidden. How many more are like Sabrina, unseen and unheard? Sabrina was convicted and sent to prison. Her actions were desperate, but they came from years of suffering and neglect. Her case forces society to face its failures and the extreme steps some take to escape pain. Her imprisonment is both a punishment and a sign of how systems failed to help her when she needed it most. It's a call for action. It shows the need for better systems, early intervention, and a promise to make sure no child feels as alone and hopeless as she did. Will society learn from her story, or will her cries for help keep echoing, unanswered, in the years ahead? 8. Bonita Linva. The story of Bonita Linva is about a mother's love and how far she went to protect her son. Bonita was a devoted mom who built her life around her young boy, treasuring every moment they had together. But her happy world fell apart when she found out someone had hurt her son. This heartbreaking discovery filled her with guilt, anger, and a strong need to make things right. The person who hurt her son was someone Bonita had trusted. This betrayal was devastating, and it awakened a fierce instinct to protect her child. Bonita turned to the legal system, hoping for help. She reported the mistreatment and begged for quick action. However, the system was slow. Paperwork took too long, hearings were postponed, and her son remained at risk. Bonita's frustration and desperation grew as she realized how helpless she was. How many parents have felt this same pain, watching the system fail their loved ones? Unable to wait any longer, Bonita decided to take matters into her own hands. She confronted the person she believed had hurt her son. During this confrontation, her anger took over, and she hurt the alleged perpetrator badly. While Bonita's actions came from a place of love and protection, they also led to her arrest. Now, instead of finding justice for her son, she was facing criminal charges herself. Her case sparked debates across the country. People were divided about what Bonita did. Many supported her, saying she acted out of love and desperation because the system had failed her. They believed she wasn't a criminal, but a mother who was pushed to her limit. On the other hand, some argued that taking justice into her own hands was wrong. They worried that allowing emotions to guide actions would lead to chaos and weaken the law. During her trial, Bonita's sorrow was clear. She spoke about her deep love for her son and how her pain clouded her judgment. Her lawyers explained the mental toll she had endured, showing that her actions were not out of hate but out of a mother's despair. Still, the question remained: can emotions like love and desperation ever justify breaking the law? Bonita's case exposed serious problems in the system. Advocates for change used her story to call for improvements, such as faster investigations, better counseling for parents, and easier access to legal help. Families dealing with mistreatment need a justice system that is quick, caring, and effective, not slowed down by endless red tape. Though Bonita's actions divided opinions, her story highlights the incredible strength and fragility of a parent's love. It forces us to ask tough questions. Are our systems doing enough to protect children and support families? Can the law ever fully understand the power of a mother's instinct to protect her child? Her journey shows how far love can push someone. It is a reminder that when justice fails, parents can feel trapped and forced to act on their own. 9. Lupe Mercado. Lupe Mercado's story shows how far parents will go to protect their kids when the system fails. In a small town with few resources, Lupe and her husband faced a nightmare. Their teenage daughter was being harassed by a dangerous man. He had a bad reputation, but no one had stopped him. The parents begged the police for help, but nothing was done. They grew more desperate as time passed. It all started with strange messages. A new number kept texting their daughter, and the messages felt controlling. The man behind them was known for trouble, but he always avoided punishment. People talked about him, but no one acted. Lupe went to the police, but they said there wasn't enough proof. Each day, fear grew stronger for the family. The police's lack of action left Lupe and her husband feeling helpless. They realized they had to act themselves. They found the man in public, hoping to confront him and demand answers. The situation quickly got out of control. A heated argument turned into a fight while others watched in shock. In the end, the man walked away with minor injuries, but Lupe and her husband were arrested. Their actions caused a national debate. Some people called them heroes, parents who stood up when no one else would. Others said taking the law into their own hands was dangerous and could lead to bigger problems. In court, the case sparked discussions about right and wrong, law and justice. Lupe spoke through tears, saying she regretted what happened but had no choice. The prosecutor argued that laws exist to prevent chaos. The defense said the system had failed and left the family with no options. The case got national attention. News reports shared the family's struggle, and people reacted with anger and sympathy. Child safety groups said the case proved how often authorities ignore families in danger. Investigations revealed problems like delays, miscommunication, and cases that stayed unresolved for months. Despite the hardships, Lupe's story led to some positive changes. People came together to help families facing similar dangers. Local groups started teaching parents how to spot warning signs and handle legal systems. These efforts gave hope, but they also raised tough questions. Can these changes fix a broken system, or are they just temporary solutions? 10. Norma Paget. Prejudice can change justice in shocking ways. This happened in the story of Norma Paget. In 1949, she accused 4 black men of attacking her. This led to unfair trials and ruined lives. Her story shows how lies and racism can hurt people in society. Norma said 4 black men attacked her. In the South during segregation, such claims often led to violence and death for the accused. These men became known as the Groveland Four. One of them was killed before he could go to trial. The other 3 faced unfair courts. Evidence was ignored and racism decided their fate. Civil rights leaders noticed the case. Thurgood Marshall, a lawyer from the NAACP, defended the men. He showed problems in the case like forced confessions and lies from witnesses. Even with his hard work, the men were not freed. This showed how deeply racism affected the courts. Years later, new facts raised doubts about Norma's story. Witnesses said her story was shaped by pressure from police and society. Investigations showed police lied and tampered with evidence to protect racist systems. Slowly, the truth came out. In 2019, Florida pardoned the Groveland Four. They admitted the men had been treated unfairly. The pardon was a step toward justice, but it could not erase the pain caused to the men and their families. For some, it brought peace. For others, it reminded them how long justice had been denied. The Groveland Four became a symbol for civil rights. Their story inspired activists to fight for fair trials and better laws. While progress has been made, this case reminds us to stay alert. We must make sure history does not repeat itself.
Today, this story warns us about the dangers of bias and lies. It makes us think about how stories can be shaped by those in power. The lessons from the Groveland Four remind us to keep fighting for fairness and justice for everyone.